Hello, welcome to another video, and this, you can tell by the title, it's What If Deku was in the SCP of the Dream SMP. From last time, Izuku was assigned a new SCP. So, let's get into this. This is Izuku's POV, and it's probably going to be for the next few parts, so get used to it. I look at my clipboard and look at their files. SCP-TV-BB0. SCP-TV-BB0 is a 5'5" male of British descent and was found in the UK with SCP-T0MMY1NN1T. They seem to be close and even friends. He has brown hair, black eyes with yellow in the mix. He has black antennas and he is also able to befriend bees. And he's also able to make bees. But of course, he has a horrifying side of his abilities. He's able to grow them in size and able to make them not able to die when they sting someone. He's able to make them 100 times bigger than their actual size. The bees are given flowers for food and to make beehives, but are usually requested of SCP-T0MM1N1T to supply them with flowers, since he mostly constantly makes vegetation by necessity. I was a bit interested in the other SCP that was mentioned in the files, but I look back and walk into the containment. I see a teenager that is shorter than myself, with black antennas and black yellow eyes, and looked back at me and say, "Hello?" I then say, "Hello, SCP-TV-BB0." He then says, "Please call me Tubbo." I then say, "Sure, it's nice to meet you, Tubbo." Tubbo then looks a bit surprised at my response and smiles. I then look around his containment. It was a nice and kind of outside kind, but still inside. Grass, trees. I talked to Tubbo and kind of just lay on the floor with him. Tubbo was grateful to me for coming by, since he hadn't had anyone to talk to for a while. I told him it was nice just sitting here and talking to him. I was laying down when the sirens went off and almost everything was shut down. There were bangs and booms and explosions. But far away, I took Tubbo with me and walked out. I then see a teen that looked about Tubbo's age. He had blonde hair, blue eyes, kind of looked like Filza. Tubbo then ran up to him and they hugged. Tubbo then says, "Tommy!" The one called Tommy then looks at me and says, "Who's he?" I then kind of stand there awkwardly, and Tubbo says, "Oh, he got me out. He's here to help." I smile, and he brushes it off. He said, "Well, let's find Phil." I then perk up by the name and say, "As in Filza?" He then looks at me and says, "What is it to you?" I say, "My sort of adoptive father?" Tommy looks at me and with envy, sort of, but looked away and said, "So you know where he is?" I say, "Yeah, let me lead the way." Tommy and Tubbo followed me when Filza burst down the door with some crows on his tail and ran and grabbed all of us and hugged us, then said, "Are you all okay?" I then say, "No, I think I broke a rib, and maybe some internal bleeding if it was to that extent." Phil then let go and started to kind of cry and worry. I reassured him it was just a joke, and I explained it's Gen Z humor. Tubbo then says, "Phil, we need to find Rambo and Michael." "Who's Michael?" Phil then says, "Of course, let me lead the way." Phil walks past everyone and takes the lead, with everyone following behind him like we're his ducklings, or in this case, his hatchlings. After some walking, we got to a door that needed a personnel key. I was about to walk up and open the door when Phil raised his foot and was about to kick down the door. I'm sorry. It's just the door is open, and I'm not sure if I want to close it. I'm going to close it. Okay, we're back. He was about to kick open the door when Tubbo and Tommy and some of the crows that held onto his clothes said, and Tubbo said, "Michael's in there! What if you scare him?" He looks back at me and says, could you open the door? I look, oh right, I never told him my name. Just call me M. I open the door and it shows 2 people in there. A child and the other is a tall man that seemed to be carrying the child. Tubbo runs up and says, "Rambo! Michael!" He hugs them and the child and takes the child, and the tall man hugs Tubbo. Tubbo then looks over to me and says, "Oh, M, this is Michael and this is Rambo." I then recognize the 2. They're SCPs. Well, duh, they don't look anything human. I looked at the tall one, and that was named Rambo. SCP R4NB00 is a 8'5" male that is of American descent, and the only proof of this is his accident and was found in America. He has half black and half white hair, half black and half white skin, but has more black. He had 1 red eye and 1 green eye. He has a tail and pointed ears facing down. He's able to make pearls that are able to teleport anyone who throws them. He can make little fire in his hands, but not to a large extent. He says he knows what he is, but won't say what. SCP R4NB00 is very shy and docile but when it is in a dangerous situation, he will enter a state that is named endowalking, where he will have superhuman strength and could pick up things and touch things that would break at a touch or explode. In this state, his eyes will go completely purple and into a kind of sleepwalking state. I then look at the child named Michael. SCP Michael files. SCP-M1CH34L is a 3'2" male child that seems to be half pig but rotting, and is the adoptive child of SCP-R4NB00 and SCP-TVBB0. He is never away from his parents, and if researchers would try to remove SCP-M1CH34L, that would trigger SCP-R4NBB0's endowalking, but would only protect SCP-M1CH34L and SCP-TVBB0 and others if necessary. SCP-TVBB0 would use his large bees to protect SCP-Michael. SCP-Michael is able to summon a golden sword and a bit more in force than an actual golden sword. He is also able to summon other of his kind that if he were injured or any of them were injured, they would attack the attacker. He speaks an unknown language, and only person who seems to understand is SCP Technoblade of the group Last Hope of Anomalies that are currently teaching SCP R4NB00 and SCP-TVBB0. I then say, "Hi, it's nice to meet you. Rambo, correct?" He then hesitates and says, "Yeah, you're, M? Am I correct?" I say, "Yes, it's M." Rambo then says, "Oh, it's nice to meet you, M." Tubbo then says, "This is Michael. Say hi, bud." Michael then looks up at me and reaches his hand out and oinks. He reaches out for my hair, and Tubbo says, "Oh, sorry." "Aww." I say, "No, it's fine. Do you mind if I hold him?" Tubbo says, "No, it's fine. Here." He hands me this small piglin child, and I hold him in my arms. He touches my hair, and his eyes light up, making small noises, which were adorable. He plays with my hair, and he falls asleep, and I was actually surprised. I then was about to give Tubbo his child back and says, "You mind taking him back?" Tubbo laughs and takes Michael. I then hear screaming and run out to the containment and see SCP DR34M. SCP-34M is a 6'3" male, but now seems to be human, but a bit like human. He has white skin and a lanky body. He has black sclera and neon green glowing eyes, and a black smile on his face with sharp teeth. SCP-DR34M is a shapeshifter that takes on any form it likes, but usually takes the form of a human with a smiley face, mask, or a monstrous creature with lanky limbs and white skin. He is very manipulative and almost convinced an SCP researcher to open the door, open his containment, but was stopped by a site director. He was shown much intelligence and fondness of an SCP and a site researcher. The two are SCP S4P, S4P, N4P, and site researcher George not found. He can turn into a higher being, which he calls himself a god, and others has not referred to him as Dream or SCP-DR43M, but referred to him as Dream XD, and has confirmed he is a god. Other SCPs of the site have explained that he can break anything in that form and can make things at his will without backlash. He seems to have violent tendencies when others threaten researcher George Not Found or SCP Sapnap. It has been seen that his voice will turn into a deeper, more disfigured when in a rage type of state. But in this form, he will have a different outlook, like he's a different being from SCP-DR34M. But that is unknown for now. SCP-DR34M is a Keta class SCP and is very dangerous. I froze in front of it and straightened up before saying, "SCP-DR34M, please go back to your containment. Researcher George will visit you shortly after." After mentioning Researcher George, he slowly went back. I gasped for air. God, I almost died by it, or him, whatever. I looked back to see Rambo shaking, Tubbo holding him, trying to calm him down, Tommy just standing there like he saw a ghost. And Phil's a reassuring Tommy. I have never seen anything like this before. They seem to be calm people, and Phil's was somewhat panicking. Who was that to them? What did he do to terrify them to this extent? What power does he have over them? Security then came, and I gave them my personal identification card, and they led them to their containment cells. I said bye and went to the exit to go home for the day. I'm walking down the street, and it's about 9 or 10. I'm tired as hell. I put my hair up in a bun and keep walking till I get to my apartment building. That I share with 3 other people because the rent is a nice place. I took off my shoes and quickly took a shower. Before I get to my room, I see one of my roommates out the room, and it's sleepwalking. I shoo them away and get some comfy clothes and drifts off to sleep. I woke up in the middle of the night and heard a creak inside my apartment. I don't have anything that would make a creak on my side without reason, so there's something or someone in my house. Oh great, I may have someone here. The thing about me is I am involved with the government, so of course I need to protect myself without using my quirk, of course. So I need a gun, or 15. Of course I have them as safe because of my roommates, and hid in my closet. I got up and walked over to my desk and got a handgun and loaded it, then opened the door to see something, and I immediately put up my gun. I'm somewhat shaking and took a breath before I take a step forward and heard a creak to my left. I turn my body in the direction of the sound. I then see 2 crows out my window, and then I see motherfucking Phil at my window. Phil, what the hell are you doing here? Phil then says, I just wanted to check up on you. He smiles like it didn't matter that he's out my window and standing there in an alleyway, which anyone could see him if there was a bit of light on him. I then realize I'm still pointing my handgun at him, and I put it down and put the safety on. If you don't know what that is, it's a safety button that stops the gun from firing, but of course it doesn't guarantee it won't fire because there might be some complications with the gun. So yeah, let's continue. I then say, I need to get you to the foundation. I facepalm and say, and he says, can I stay for a bit? I looked at him and say, if you can shrink, then you can. I then turn around to get my phone because I know he won't shrink. But then I hear, okay. I then run to the window and look down to see Phil waving at me in the alleyway, but shrunk. I look down and say, fine, come in. He then flew up and came into my house. I say, let me go get you some blankets and some pillows so you can go to sleep. And I can. Quick side note, the apartment is huge as hell, and they can have a moderately nice side of the apartment and have their own private kitchen, living room, or like a small room that they can use for anything, laundry room, and a dining room from themselves. But there's a bigger one in the middle where they all share stuff and I got to my closet and get some blankets and pillows and took out the pull-out couch and then set up everything for him, and then just went and splat on my bed and went to bed. I woke up in the morning and I got ready for work. Then I see in my living room Phil making breakfast. I say, hey Phil, what are you making? Phil turned back to me and say, I'm making bacon, eggs, and pancakes. I always made myself Japanese-style breakfast. I just sat down and see what it is and ate. After the food, I called the foundation to say Phil's here and to come pick him up. After some time and getting picked up by the foundation, I went to get coffee because it's always calms me. Then it started to rain. It wasn't that bad, but it was manageable. I got my umbrella and went off. I got an email that I had a day off, so I decided to spend it just relaxing. I stayed in the coffee place for a while before taking out my laptop and doing some work at the coffee place. I stayed there for a couple hours before I went back home. Then I got a call from someone I haven't heard from in a while, and I picked up. Hello? They continued to say, hey Midoriya, how are you? Oh, I'm doing good. How are you? I was wondering if you could pick up your stuff. Oh, sure. I can pick it up in an hour. Okay, see you soon. I hanged up and excitedly walked back to my apartment. And this is part 2 of What If Deku was in the SCP of the Dream SMP. So, SCP Philza is going to come out in a while. But I've only gotten, a bit done. So do forgive me. I was a bit focused on, the files and the SCPAU. So do forgive me. And the foolish one, yeah, I haven't done much, but it's pretty moderately the same as the Philza one, so I hope you're patient with me, and I am going to do a video on the files, but I think it would be better just to announce them when they come into the story. But if there's enough people then that says they want to have this video, then well, I'll do it. So good night, good day, good afternoon, and goodbye.